Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and it is Sunday afternoon, which means it is time for us to talk about coping with stress. We actually are a group of people, if you don't know already, who get together 3 times a week to talk about coping with life in general. And on Friday lunchtime, we talk about coping with feelings because it's okay to have feelings. Just don't let them dominate you. And the next thing is on a Friday at 7 o'clock Pacific time, we talk about coping with life, where we talk about things that happen in our lives. And then today and every Sunday afternoon at 3:30, we talk about coping with stress. And welcome to the viewers who are tuned in at the moment and those that may be on the replay. We are always delighted to have you join us, make comments. Even if you don't make comments during the broadcast, feel free to make comments in the replay. Just to let us know if it's been of any help to you, and if you need any help that we can perhaps support you with. DearMamaSal is a group of people who get together. It's not just me. And just to give you some idea of the stress that some people are under, I've got Jeannie on the line at the moment, and she's saying that her grandson, who has struggled all his life, he presently is hallucinating and he's not doing well, and possibly has encephalitis. And so, Jeannie, what can we do, right, except to pray for him and hope that the doctors will get it under control? And I'm pretty certain that that is pretty scary for him when he already is a young man who does not cope well with things in general. And so, I can imagine, no, I can't imagine. I like to think that I can imagine what that must be like for you all. And in terms of thoughts and prayers, not only for Jeannie's grandson and Jody, I wonder if you'd be kind enough just to make sure that I leave a note. I know I'm going to be a bit busy after the broadcast today, but we'll put up some thoughts and prayers for you, Jeannie. I got a feeling that I was meant to do that yesterday and I didn't. So forgive me for that. Long story. But you know that it is unintentional. All right, so what I wanted to say to you all is that as this pandemic continues, I am pretty certain that you are all feeling different levels of stress. Hi, Leo. Leo sending a message to daughters. Not quite sure what message, but welcome. I'm pretty certain that you're all aware that being in these very unusual circumstances for this length of time is bound to have effects on you. So if you're beginning to feel the effects and getting a little bit more stressed than normal or whatever, understand that would be quite normal. The question is, are you aware of it? And I'm going to be talking in a little bit about what it is like to have depression, in terms of some of the warning signs and some of the things that you might want to keep check on. Now, having a slight bit of depression would be quite normal with, for example, some things going on in your life that are very stressful. The problem is if it continues and you can't get control of it. And let me just make sure that I put up a disclaimer here. I am not somebody with a fancy piece of paper, a doctor of any sort, or therapist of any sort. Either the information that you will hear from me are either things that I have learned over the years. I got the white hair by living a long time, or else things that I've read about or care about or whatever. So it's just my opinion and that of our viewers. And I want to say that I wonder, Jeannie, what you are doing to help yourself, because this must be very traumatic for you, and it must be something about which you have no control. And so the serenity prayer comes in, where we learn to let go of what we can't control, but you can't let go of something that is that important to you, I am sure. So my question would be, what are you doing to keep yourself calm? What are you doing to help your daughter? And what are you doing to look after yourself and York? So that is my question. And so as I'm waiting for that reply, because I'm certain that will be in itself quite an eye-opener, I've got stress coming into my life. And if any of you have got stress coming into yours and would like to talk about it, please feel free to start writing comments here so that we can cover it. My stress, as some of you heard on Friday, is that tomorrow they are going to be turning off the hot water, in fact, all the water in my apartment from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so having no water at all for that length of time, the question is that stressful? And my answer when I was talking about it on Friday is it is stressful only to the extent that I am not prepared for it. And you know, one of the sayings that we have here at DearMamaSal is be prepared, not scared. And so I am very grateful for the fact that I got a couple of days warning. All right, that's it's not like it's suddenly the water got cut off and I wasn't prepared. If I am not prepared by tomorrow morning, it will be because I chose not to get smart. And so I've got a list of things at the moment written down, that things that I can think of that I need to do. And one of them is to make sure I shower tonight. Make sure that I put extra water in the bathtub so that I can flush tomorrow, because with no water, think about that. And then make sure that my water filter, I've got a big water filter, and I make sure that is topped up so that I've got water. Make sure that I've got extra cooking or drinking water in some saucepans, but not all the saucepans, otherwise what am I going to cook with? But you know, the thing is this, the other thing that I talked about was one of the clever ways to deal with it is to get out of the house. As some of you know, I'm not in my own house. I'm in a rented apartment at the moment. Both Jeannie and I had fires in our homes this year. And I am in this rented apartment. So one of the things that I can do, because we work on that, don't stress about what you can't do, work on what you can do. And so what I can do is get out. In other words, know that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and there's not going to be any heat, because a lot of the heat here is water heat. And so I need to get dressed pretty darn quickly, which means it'd be a good idea to get my clothes ready tonight, right? And make sure that I can quickly get dressed and then grab a cup of coffee, because, you know, I don't function without my cup of coffee, and then get out and go and do a couple of things that will use up the time. And if you think about it, it's not that long. It's only 4 hours. And I'm pretty certain that going out and doing a couple of chores that I need to do will, in fact, use up those hours. Jeannie's saying, I like your red top. Thank you, Jeannie. So what I asked Jeannie, is, I don't know if you heard me, but what is it that you are doing to help you and York stay as calm as possible? And what are you doing to help your daughter? Just so that we can sort of find out how you're coping with this, because that is terribly difficult. And by the way, for those of you who might be regular viewers and know Beth, I'd really appreciate some thoughts and prayers for Beth and her staff, because she ended up with one of her staff getting COVID, and within 48 hours was gone. And you can imagine what an incredible shock that has been, both to her and to all her staff, and obviously to the family and friends of the staff member who passed. But I do want you all to be aware that this virus is not to be messed with. Whatever you do, be overly cautious now, rather than think, okay, fine, well, it's not really that bad because I haven't got it yet. Please be overly cautious. And the staff member that Beth talked of was healthy and only 34. It's not like she was my age or had underlying conditions or anything like that. She was perfectly healthy and just 34. And she got this thing and was gone within 48 hours. I mean, that is so scary. Now, while we're waiting for Jeannie to give us some feedback, I wanted to say that I had a classic example of something that I think happens to us all in different ways every day with all the social media input and everything else. I got a note from my brother, for those of you who know Big Brother Jeff. I got a note from my brother talking about the fact, and he lives in South Africa, which you know at the moment is struggling with a variant of the COVID. And he said that they'd found out that a over-the-counter drug called ivermectin is called. They found that they're saying that this over-the-counter drug actually is capable of having some effect on COVID. Well, I must admit, when I first read that, I sort of rolled my eyes a bit because when I did my research, which I'm a great believer in, check it out. So I checked it out and I found out that this particular drug, is used to kill parasites, and it's quite honestly used, I believe, in veterinary terms. So in animals, and so you look at it and you go, I sort of went, wow, what are we believing today? And then what I did was first of all, when I heard about it, I must admit I rolled my eyes, and I really did. And then I thought, let me not roll my eyes until I know what I'm talking about here, because it's important that I understand. Do you get what I'm saying? We're going to get a lot of people saying a lot of things that we may or may not believe, but we need to check it out. And so what I did was I went and did even more research into it and found out that there is nothing being proven that it works, but there has been some indication that they may consider it, that it's, that they may be doing more trials with it. Now, when I got that far, I thought, well, I'm glad that I didn't just roll my eyes and move on and think my brother was an idiot, because I know he isn't. He's a highly intelligent man. But you understand, we do that, right? We think it's fake news, but my question is, do we check it? However, the next thing is check the source. And when I checked the source of, I actually asked my brother to let me have it, the source of what he was telling me, because I no longer just take things at face value. I want to see it written, and I want to see who's writing that. And quite honestly, when I looked into that, the source was not something that I would consider to be a highly credible source. That's just my judgment. But I'm still doing research into it, and I'm certain that Jody will be doing the same, because Jody, for those of you who don't know, is our admin, and she also loves to do research into things. So we'll have a look into that, and what if it's true? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And Jody's saying that she's already done some research, because I talked to Jody about it when I heard, and she said one research study was already withdrawn. Hi, Annie. Annie, big hugs to you, honey. Thoughts and prayers. I understand you're going through a lot of stress at the moment, and I wondered in what way we could support you. And thank you for making the time to be here, because I'm certain your mind is racing, and I'm certain that you are, quite honestly, probably close to your wit's end in terms of, what can you do? Oh, my honey, it's, what can I say? We send our thoughts and prayers to you, because that's really, the pain of having a child that's sick. when I know that your son has already gone through so much. And so we just want to know, how can we support you? We can't do anything for your son, obviously, but what can we do to support you? Hi, Nyasha. And for those of you who don't know, Nyasha joins us from the little island of Tobago. And if you don't know where that is, it's part of Trinidad and Tobago, which is on the east side of South America, near the top. So, you know, it's amazing where we've got Jody joins us from New Hampshire. Jeannie, I know, is in Maine. I'm not sure where Annie is. Texas, I think. Why do I think Texas? Well, maybe I've got that wrong. I'm certain that Annie will correct me. Or knowing Jeannie, she will jump on that immediately if I got it wrong. So what I wanted to do is to let you know that we all, in our own way, are dealing with stress every day. But we get a situation like Annie's story where her godson is, you know, they think he might have encephalitis. That is so incredibly stressful. It is almost beyond our comprehension. And Annie's saying it's true. I have 2 little boys. Oh, wait a minute. Annie, are you aware of the fact that if you put up a comment there, that you're also giving me the okay to repeat it? If you don't want me to repeat it, because this stays on the replay, you just need to say at the beginning, don't talk about it. You might want to give me information, but you don't necessarily want me talking about it. Does that make sense, Annie? And can I get the okay to repeat what you just wrote to me, starting with the words, it's true? It's totally fine. Okay, thank you so much, honey. You understand, I want to respect people's privacy in a lot of ways, and also make sure that we let you know that we care about things like that. We're quite ethical in as far as we can be in terms of that. All right, so here's what Annie says about her son. She's saying, it is true that she's going through all this stress. I have 2 little boys, ages 4 and 6. My 6-year-old has autism, and my 4-year-old has been verbal, whip smart, and communicative. I love them both, of course, but Zephyr is suffering. Tell me something, Zephyr is the 6-year-old or the 4-year-old? I think he's the 4-year-old. But that's right. So I got that right. You know, Jeannie's been educating me over the months, you know. All right, so I mean, I cannot imagine. So you've already got your 6-year-old with autism, and now your highly whip smart, communicative, verbal 4-year-old is now suffering. I just, you know, to me that is so scary at such a level that I find it difficult to even fathom, quite honestly. So, and then he's saying it came on very suddenly. Yeah, and you know, it's like, I don't know about everybody else in the room right now, but when you hear something like this, or you hear Beth's story about, you know, one minute she had a 34-year-old workmate who was fine, and the next minute, within 48 hours, she got the COVID and died. When you hear these stories, it sort of puts everything else at a different level. Would you agree with that, everybody? And Annie's saying, I was having night disturbances and suddenly it progressed. He was having night disturbances and suddenly it progressed. We spent the last few days at Children's Hospital. Yes, Jeannie's been letting us know about that. And so, Annie, I don't know how we can help you except to let you know that we are here, and that with your permission, I will put up thoughts and prayers for Zephyr, and that, you know, that we will do what little we can in the way of thoughts and prayers to help him. And in any way that we can help you, if you can, I am really, I don't know you well enough to know what help you would appreciate. We have a group of people here who are really good at supporting one another. All right, so Annie's saying there is a silver lining. Wow, incredible that you can talk about that. He had an MRI, a lumbar puncture, and an EEG, which showed no tumors. So that's been ruled out. Okay, so it's okay for me to put that up publicly. I will put it up on our Facebook page after the broadcast if Jody reminds me and gets the whip out, because I meant to do it on Friday and I clean forgot. And I apologize for that. But we have quite a network of people, and their prayers are pretty powerful. So we will do what we can in that way. Hi, Rinsky, good to see you. How are you doing with practicing getting off the hamster wheel? For those of you who don't know, Rinsky was talking on Friday about the fact that she got herself into an emotional hamster wheel, going round and round in circles, about a boxer who had punched an opponent, and the opponent ended up in a coma. And and Rinsky's saying, okay, I'm doing very well, thanks to you. Well, what I was saying is that it is really important to understand that we go in the hamster wheel of going in circles because we're not dealing with the facts. We're dealing with how we feel, not with the reality. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Annie's saying, yes, I've actually started a fundraiser where I'm trying to keep updating information, photos, videos, etc. I'm not asking for donations, but if you'd like to follow our journey, we'd be delighted to do that and to give you some verbal support. If you could send me that link, or maybe I will ask if Jeannie, because she has me on Facebook Messenger, if you could send me that link to that page, I certainly will share it so that our regular viewers can, with your permission, join in and support you. Because, sometimes it's just a comment and a hug here and there that make all the difference, right? Day to day. So I want you to check with Rinsky. Have you been finding that you can stop the hamster wheel more quickly now that you know exactly how to do that? If you choose to. And I want to just make sure that we agree on that. In order to stop the hamster wheel going around in circles, you have to want it badly enough to take the steps to do it. That's wonderful. Rinsky's saying, yes, I can stop it more quickly. Good. Now, if you're human, you probably end up back there again, and then you go, wait a minute, stop. Let me remember what the facts are. Okay, good. Well done, Rinsky. And he's saying, I will. I'm a bit behind on updating the last couple of days. It takes so much emotional energy, but I will update when I find the strength. You know something, Annie? I want you to understand that looking after you is the most important thing. I know there are an awful lot of people probably in your family and friends that care very deeply and that want to be updated. Did you know, for example, that you can actually nominate somebody else to be your admin and maybe can update for you if you haven't got the strength? Maybe your mom would be able to update people on your page if you nominate her to be your admin, for example. Did you know about that, Annie? And that's so nice. And Yasha's saying, Annie, I can't provide funds, but DearMamaSal group is wonderful. And they continue to tune in regularly when you can. You'll be so totally grateful. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Nyasha. I want to make sure that we all understand that Annie's number one reason for even breathing at the moment will be to support her son. And so, anybody that's been through anything as horrific as this will understand that. Yeah, and Rinsky's saying, oh, Annie, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Yeah, absolutely. And Nyasha saying, Rinsky, I'm glad you're on the journey for emotional intelligence. I keep up the great work. Yeah. Well, Nyasha, you certainly are doing a great job. By the way, Nyasha, how's the exercise going for you? Are you still using your elliptical? All right. So, because, looking after you, Nyasha, is your most important challenge, right? The same as Annie's journey is to obviously care for her son, but also to make sure that she's eating. Let's try and think of all the things that Annie needs to do, if she can, to get into her routine so that she can keep her mental and physical strength up. Annie, I presume that you have a husband that can make sure that you eat. And I would recommend, lots of water. All right, so Annie's saying, yes, I do, but it's been pretty chaotic. I can't imagine who would want to take it on. I've had so many people reach out with supportive words and kindness. There is such goodness, even from strangers. Well, didn't somebody once say, Annie, that strangers are just people you haven't met yet? All right? And from my experience in life, Annie, you never know who your friends are until you need them. And surprisingly enough, quite often they are not the people you imagined they would be. And I want you to, yeah, I think you like that thing about the strangers are people you just haven't met yet. Yeah. So I want you to know that it is for you under all this stress to take the time to tune in is amazing. And I'm pretty certain that Janie, your mom, must have recommended that you do that. And I would say that is a great kindness, obviously from Jeannie, but for you to actually make the time, I can imagine that part of your brain was saying, I don't have time for that. I've got to look after my son. And yet you came here to look after you for just a little while. That is amazing. Do you know how important that is, Annie? And I think that's the point that I really want to make, how important that is, that you understand that looking after you is really, really important. When will you hear the results of whether it's encephalitis or not? And while I'm waiting for Annie to reply on that, I thought I would give the rest of us just a reminder of some of the wake-up calls in terms of, am I starting to be in depression? And I would say I want to give you this, not only for you, but for your friends, all right? Because like everything else in life, if we are dealing with a lot of stress and not dealing with it, talking about it, getting it out, then we will 9 times out of 10 end up in some sort of depression because we're dealing with past stuff and we're not moving on. On the other hand, if we are imagining the worst on the other side, that ends up being anxiety. And so I want to make sure that we understand that some of the conditions that happen if you are starting to get depressed. And number one is spending all day in bed. You can't be bothered to get up. How about faking? And by the way, if any of you relate to these at the moment, feel free to say, yep, that's me, because it's important. I I want to say that faking a smile, not telling the truth about how you actually feel, is one of the warning signs as well. Make sure you don't tell everybody. You need to find safe people that you can tell your truth to. But I recommend that you all have at least one or two people in your life that you can say to them, you know something, I'm beginning to not feel as good as I am pretending. You need to have people in your life that you can tell them that truth. The other thing is if you start to overeat or not eating at all, those are also signs. How about your personal hygiene? When did you last have a shower? Those sort of things are also really important. Did you make your bed today? Routines. Can you keep to your routines? And if you can, the chances are you're not in depression. But if you're just not, not keeping to your routines at all, then you know that you've got something going on. And being emotionally distant from people. Maybe you are just giving, one-word answers to people, but you're not really emotionally in the present at all. So the reason I want to talk about that is because I think as this pandemic goes on, and we also hear such incredibly sad stories, like Annie's story about her son Zephyr, or Beth's story about, excuse me, her co-worker. When we hear these stories, the important thing is for us to stay within our own boundaries. We can be heartbroken. That is quite normal. But we cannot change what already is, all right? We need to know what can we do. So let's think about this. Let's think about what can we do to help Annie. And Annie, with your permission, I'd like to use you as an example, because it could trigger some people where they go into the emotional roller coaster here just by hearing this. By the way, Annie's saying, yes, Rinsky asked whether we could share the link with our friends, and Annie's saying, yes, we can. But I'm happy for people just to support, not strictly money. That's not the purpose of sharing. Okay, excellent. And so I look at it and go, be aware. How can we be supportive of Annie, but not get sucked in so that we are emotionally spent and unable to look after ourselves, because half our brain is working with Annie. And one of the things that I have said is that a lot of people ask me about that. How do I do the work that I do, to support people and not end up completely drained and stressed out, whatever? And the only answer I can give people is I have boundaries, right? I know that I can hear what Annie's story is. I can be so sad to hear it, but I realize there is little I can do to help, all right? Except I can put up thoughts and prayers, and if I choose to, I can contribute toward the cost, right? Those are things I can do. But worrying myself sick is not going to help Annie or her son. However, can I support Jeannie as well, in some way? I don't know, Jeannie, let us ask you, because you must be feeling pretty helpless at the moment. So what can we do to support you, right? And that is something that we can do. Wow, interesting. Annie was saying here, surprisingly, I was able to lend support to my own doctor just by sharing the strength of the community. Everyone is suffering here in Austin. A well-loved doctor was killed. It affected many. Yes, these things do affect us, whether we like it or not. And so the fact that the viewers now have had 2 broadcasts with two incredibly worrying bits of information. I want to make sure that everybody is aware that they are responsible for keeping their boundaries and not letting themselves get out of, spin out of control on this. So my question is everybody feeling pretty aware that, yes, you can feel this, but I need to deal with the facts. This is what I can do to help. And other than that, I need to get on with my life. And Yasha is saying, I used to do that whenever others, who I thought were my friends, would do whatever to me, I would pretend that I was okay. And basically I wasn't. And that caused severe depression. Yeah, but we got you trained on that one. You see, Nyasha, just saying the word, ouch, that hurt. Did you mean to hurt me? It's amazing how that wakes people up. Jeannie's saying, I'm busy cooking and baking cookies. I gave some to my next door neighbor who has 2 little girls. All right, so we know that Jeannie's feel-good genes, her feel-good medicine is helping others. So because Jeannie can't do more, I'm sure she wants to be able to do everything for her daughter and for Zephyr. What can she do? She can do good to somebody within her community. Right. And Annie's saying, I shared the positive thoughts that helped me, but I cannot focus on the tragic details. I think it would be human nature, with all due respect to Annie, and I want to just say this. I think it would be human nature if your mind goes there. All right? I can't imagine that it wouldn't. Yeah, I am certain you are what-ifing quite a bit at the moment. What if it's encephalitis? What if they don't find out what it is? Whatever. And the thing is, that's human nature, honey. On the other hand, I think I'm right in saying that you're somebody of faith. In which case, you know to let go and let God, because this is way beyond our control. Yeah, there we go. And Annie, bless your heart, honey. I'm giving you a big hug on that one. Annie's replying to me, I am definitely poring over my own details. Yes, that would, quite honestly, that's human nature. And I would think you probably had a major problem if you weren't. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, I am certain that you're doing a lot of research and anything that could have the symptoms that he's got. And so I just think it is wonderful, as I said, that you come here and let us just hold your hand for a second. And, Rinsky is supporting Nyasha here and saying, Nyasha, it's not right that people have done that to you. I am so sorry you went through that. Well, I'm in a way, if you think about it, Rinsky, I'm in a way glad that she did, because Nyasha, if she hadn't gone through that, probably wouldn't have found us. And for those of you who've been around for a while, if you've watched Nyasha's journey from being a total victim when we first met her, with a lot of medical issues that she didn't know she had any control over, and now to hear her support other people, and Nyasha, 10 out of 10. For the fact that you give back the way that you do, right? That is wonderful that you take the time to come back and help others as you continue to grow. Jody's saying, check in with yourself often and to be honest about how you're doing. Asking for support is a sign of strength. Yes. And for example, some of you know that I'm pre-diabetic, and I'm struggling with getting rid of the sugar cravings after Christmas. And a lot of it has to do that I've got, a lot of leftover sugars in the house. And for some reason, I cannot throw them away. All right. To me, it's a waste of money. Why would I throw them away? But I am trying to learn not to eat them. It's very, very difficult. or not to eat them as much. And I think the truth is that I need to know that it's okay to have the occasional thing, but I just can't have it to the amount that I've been doing. And that takes great discipline. And I wonder if any of you relate to that. And the thing that I do keep reminding myself of was, hey, this is the person that gave up smoking after 60 something years. Believe you me, you can do this sugar thing if you just need to want to do it. And Nyasha's saying about the fact that she contributes to others. She's saying, yeah, that's not a problem, Mama Sal. Once I can, I always give back. Yes. And isn't it funny, Nyasha, that giving back is sometimes the greatest gift you can give people. I've always said that why DearMamaSal works as a group of people is that we are constantly talking about things that happen every day. And it's not because you're stupid or weak or whatever. It is about life happens, and life isn't always pleasant. And that doesn't mean that it's unfair. Life isn't fair. Yeah, and Rinsky's saying, yes, if you could stop smoking, you can stop anything. Congratulations on stopping smoking. Well, what is it now? 9 years, did I say? Or on January the 12th at 9 a.m. That's when it was. I remember it very well. And I can tell you in all honesty, why would I lie to you? In all honesty, that I have not so much as had a puff. However, every now and then, I've got to be honest, every now and then I will be somewhere and I will see people maybe smoking on a street corner or something, and I will stand there and I will say to them, I just knocked my earring off. Hang on a second, people. And I will actually go to them and I will say to them, I wonder if you could just blow that smoke my way. And they're busy trying to hide the cigarettes from me. And I'm going, no, really. I'm asking you to do me a favor. I don't want a cigarette, but what I would love is just, for a moment. There we go. It's very difficult to put earrings on when you've got arthritis. Did you know that? But I will do it because I want to put my earrings on. So it's really important that we understand that we get this balance between being honest and having. I'm glad that all of you that come in here are capable of being honest. It is okay to hurt. It is okay to be scared. It is okay to think the worst every now and then. Why? That's being prepared. Does that make sense? I cannot possibly get myself ready for having no water for a day and no heat for a day if I don't think about the worst case scenario. I have to think through, what if this happens? What if that happens? In order to be as prepared as possible. Or I can just say, I don't want to deal with any of this. I'm going to go away. Get up and go and leave the house. But I don't want to. I like having choices. What about you? So I want to make sure that if I choose to stay in the house tomorrow, that I can be comfortable, that I am very grateful for the fact apparently we will still have electricity, which means I will still have the ability to be able to have my internet connection. I will still have, various other things. I will still have a stove that works because my stove is electrical, which means I can have hot water. I just have to boil it. So you look at it and go, having options in life makes all the difference. Having options in life makes all the difference. So I'm thinking about what Jeannie just told us, right? Jeannie is under very high stress because her daughter is under stress and her son is in hospital. Her grandson is in hospital. But Jeannie is baking cookies because that makes her feel better and giving them away because that makes her feel better. That is great self-care. Great self-care. So is there anybody else? I know that we've got quite a bit going on here already, but is anybody else suffering from stress today? that we need to hear about. And, you know, when we were talking on Friday, I believe it was, one of the things that Jody mentioned to me was that we've been talking a lot about, you know, what happens when we get highly stressed is we're more likely to lash out at people because they don't understand. And I thought it was interesting. I've seen it, you know, I'm a great believer in, if I want to know what to talk about to you at any given week, you know, I just look at what's going on around me and go, oh yeah, that would help somebody. And if it helps one person, you understand it is worth doing the broadcast. And so one of the things that I read today, and let me just find it so that I can quote it correctly, because I thought it was just a really good meme. Okay. My computer's running slow. So one of the, basically this is what it said. When you read something that you think is totally wrong, maybe it's a political comment or whatever, when you read something that to you is just like makes you so angry, do you realize that you have a choice? You have a choice not to respond. All right, and just get on with your life. You don't have to get involved in everything. And one of the things I always remember, for those of you who know Benji, I always remember something Benji taught me at the very beginning of my life on YouTube. And that was, Sal, you don't have to respond to the haters. Because, you know, there are so many haters and you have no idea how cruel they can be. And I remember him saying, just remember, you don't have to reply to them. Now, I've learned a little trick that I've passed on to others, which is I was brought up, you know, to acknowledge people who took the time to tell me their view. And by the way, as you know, I'm a great believer that everybody has the right to their point of view. And so what I've learned to do is when people say hateful things to me, and believe you me, I've had my fair share. When they say hateful things to me, one of the things I do is I write back and say, thank you for taking the time to give me your opinion. Because that is true, right? They took time to tell me that they hated me, or that I'm a fat slob, or that I'm, you know, I'm so old I should be dead, or, you know, whatever they say. They took time to do that. And so I am always looking for a reason to thank them. And even if it's for their point of view, all right, because I think part of the reason we have so much hate in the world is because people are not heard. And if people are not heard, then they get frustrated and whatever. Now, do I think that they're right? Not necessarily. So I can thank them and move on. Thanking them is not that I am that noble. Thanking them is about me. Because when I read something that's as hateful as that, I know that it has an effect on me. So when I can regroup myself enough to be able to write, thank you for taking the time and giving me your opinion, I know that I'm under control. Does that make sense, everybody? So that is what I do to make sure that I don't carry that on. I just go, okay, I've read that, I have acknowledged it, I can move on. And that is part of what it is. I am certain part of what Jeannie and Annie have to do every hour, maybe every minute of every hour, is to go, have I done as much as I can? And if so, what do I need to concentrate on next? And maybe it is concentrate on going and having a shower, all right? Or concentrate on actually sitting down and having something to eat. Because if I don't eat properly, I'm not going to have the strength and the mental ability to be able to cope with this, whatever this is. And not knowing is part of the stress of this. You know, it's somehow, and I'm not sure if Annie and Jeannie would agree with this, but if you know what it is, it's a different ballgame. It's when you don't know what it is that is even more stressful, because, you know, if you don't know what it is, how can you treat it? And so to me, that would be really worrying. Anyway, so one of the things that Jody asked me to talk about and said, maybe it's time for us to revisit that, and thank you for that, which is the story about nails and a fence. And I want you to remember this. If you're feeling a bit stressed and starting to lash out at people because they don't understand or they don't seem to care or whatever. So let's tell the story again. And I'm not sure who originally wrote it. Author unknown. There we go. All right, so here we go. There once was a little boy who had a bad temper. His father gave him a big bag of nails and told him that every time he lost his temper, he must hammer a nail into the back fence. The first day, the boy had driven 37 nails into that fence, and over the next few weeks, as he learned to control his anger, the number of nails hammered daily gradually dwindled down. He discovered it was easier to hold his temper than to drive those nails into the fence. And finally came the day when the boy didn't lose his temper at all, and he told his father about it, and his father suggested that the boy now pull out one nail for each day that he was able to hold his temper. And the days passed, and the young boy was finally able to tell his father that all the nails were gone. And his father took his son by the hand and led him to the fence and said, "You've done well, my son, but look at the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same. When you say things in anger, they leave a scar just like this one. You can't put a knife into a man and draw it out. It won't matter. So you can put a knife into a man and draw it out, and it won't matter how many times you say, 'I'm sorry.' The wound is still there." The little boy then understood how powerful his words were. He looked up to his father and said, "I hope you can forgive me, Father, for all the holes that I put in you." "Of course I can," said the father. So take a moment to think about that. How many of you need to be reminded of that today? How many of you are going, I needed a reminder of that one today? And if so, let's give some thanks to Jody, who suggested that I read it again. And Jody, I certainly needed to remember it. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Let me just check on some comments that have come through. Sorry, the scrolling wasn't working properly. All right, so Jody was saying about the fact that, trying to give up the sugars and things. She said, I can relate. It takes constant awareness and honesty about our behaviors, such as our nutrition, and embracing that we are worth the work. Yeah, absolutely. And Yasha said, "Rinsky, I'm all right. The boss calling me physically challenged was actually a blessing in disguise, because to me, what it meant to me was that I was too friendly and caring and too kind by telling everybody. Yes, you didn't know how to protect and only to tell your story to people who were truly trustworthy." Yes, and Rinsky's saying no heat is a good day for baking. Yes, and I've been trying to think, how many other things could I do to distract myself? Yeah, and Nan's saying about my medical situation. Before that, I used to take on the entire world and make it my own, but now I no longer am doing such things. So it is a blessing. It's okay. Sometimes life just teaches us life lessons in a weird way. I finally saw that, and although the situation will pop up now and then in my world, in my mind, it's not hurtful anymore. because I learned the lesson. You sure did, honey, and you've done such a good job. All right, so Jeannie is letting us know that Zephyr is at home now. He's doing outpatient tests. Thank you for adding that. And Vrinsky's saying, wow, I like that story, very eye-opening. Yeah, and thanks, Jody, for it. Yeah, I there's something about that visual, right? About, wow, now I've taken all those nails out, but the holes are still there. And I'm pretty certain you can all think of somebody who said something to you in anger once, and you have never been able to let it go. It stays, you can't unwrite that tape in your mind. Every time you see them, there's that little moment where you remember what they said. And Jody's saying that's a very important lesson, and thank you for reminding us all by reading it again. And Jody's saying, Rinsky, it touched my heart when I first heard it, and I've never forgotten it, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Yes. And then Nyasha's saying, so you see, Rinsky, it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't so open, and now I've changed my thoughts, and now I'm more emotionally intelligent, so I'm preventing these things from happening, and therefore also limiting, Nyasha, the amount of hurt that you feel, because you're not the cause of the hurt. You're not telling people things they don't have a right to know. Some things are just not everybody else's business. It's interesting. Rinsky's saying, I even got a tattoo in Japanese that means let go. Yeah. Winston Churchill said, when I look back on all the worries, I remember the story of an old man who said on his deathbed that he had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which never happened. And I'd like you to give that some thought as well. How much time do we spend worrying about things that we cannot control and may never happen? And Jody is saying, a nurse said something to me years ago, and that story reminded me of that incident. I am no longer angry or hurt. Instead, I pray for her, as she must have been under tremendous stress that day. Yeah, I remember. Is that the story that I think I know about? They were talking about you being in a wheelchair. I remember that day. How about this one? And this is for Annie and everybody else that's under stress. I thought it was a great quote. Sidney Harris said, the time to relax is when you don't have time for it. Are you making time to walk? Are you making time to meditate? Are you making time to stop your brain from going into that insanity? Rinsky saying, yeah, you should be so proud of how far you've come in such a short time, Nyasha. I agree. And he's saying, I tell myself I'm not the ocean, nor the wave, but in the ocean and the wave passes through me. That is a wonderful way to deal with it. And maybe learning how to surf right now would be an idea, right, Annie? How do you get above that wave and use that energy to your advantage? One of the things that I learned from Benji was something that he said he learned very early on. I think that he might have been taught it by his mom, but what he said was that whenever he gets really angry, he cleans. He takes his anger and uses it in a positive way. And, in other words, he's got all that energy built up, and then he will go and clean things. And, I always remember that story, and what a great example that is of we can take that stress and actually turn it into positive energy. Yeah, and Jody, I'm not going to repeat that unless you tell me to. All right. So again, Wayne Dyer, who I quite often quote, said, you can't always control what goes on the outside, but you can always control what goes on the inside. So you understand Annie's incredible grace right now, and that's the word I would have to use from what she has told us so far, is that she appears to be in a very level place. Even though all this is going on around her, Annie, I am amazed at how gracefully you are talking about this. And Annie's saying, I try not to assign an emotion or judgment to it. I just notice it and acknowledge it. All right. And, you know, Jodi's saying I have permission to repeat what that nurse said to her. And what it was she basically said to Jodi, what are you going to do when, you know, because Lionel was with her and Lionel was pushing the wheelchair. And she basically said, well, what are you going to do when Lionel's gone? You know, when your husband's gone? You know, you got to learn to look after yourself, because what you're going to, you know, and, you know, but, you know, in a way, Jodi, when you look back on it, you know, it also was something that was true for her, that she was concerned for what you were going to do, right? So you can always choose how you see things. We can choose to see it in a very negative way. And one of the things I love about Jodi is she's great at looking back on things and reprocessing them in a different way. And yes, she's saying, yes, I'm glad that I am stronger in defending myself, but also a bit sad because I no longer have the amount of friends that I had before. Being emotionally intelligent has taught me to listen. There you go. How about this one? I think it's Vigo Mortensen said, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a horse master. He told me to go slow, to go fast. I think it applies to everything in life. We live as though there aren't enough hours in the day, but if we do each thing calmly and carefully, we will get done a lot more quickly and with far less stress. And Jodi is reminding us that at the time that she heard that comment, and that is so important, I was already quite sick to begin with, and that pushed me over the edge that day. Actually, for months, it affected me. I know, but look at the lesson you learned by it. And Jeannie is saying, God bless you, Jodi. You're wonderful and you deserve the best. I think that is true, that we all do. We all deserve the best. And I believe that, Annie, that just in talking about what you're going through is a big eye-opener for a lot of people. The fact you can talk about that, you are aware that you cannot control the ocean. The waves are going to keep coming. All right. And your job is to ride the waves and you know, not to be caught up in them. And, you know, I think it's a lovely analogy. And the ocean will continue. You know, however much we try to push it back, it's not going to happen. And some days those waves will be really big and nasty, or they will be really big and beautiful, you know, if you learn how to surf. And so I think that is, you know, incredible that you can see things that way. And I thank you for sharing that. And it was said that once you truly accept the stuff that will happen to you, and that there is nothing you can do about it, stress miraculously leaves your life. And Jodi is saying, thank you for the kind words, Jeannie. I agree that we are all deserving of the best from ourselves and from others. We won't always get it, but we deserve it. Richard Bach, who was a life changer for me when I first read Jonathan Livingston Seagull, he said the best way to pay for a lovely moment is to enjoy it. And Jeannie is saying, Annie said the rosary with Zephyr listening, and he fell asleep holding her beads. Isn't that beautiful? So I want us all to remember that we are all in this big ocean and we are each swimming as best we can. And some of you are swimming in very calm waters at the moment. And some of you are on blissfully beautiful beaches, lapping quietly along, and some of you are in a hurricane. And I want you to know that life continues. We are here to help one another and to hold each other's hands as best we can. And Annie was saying that her medical doctor was asking me about karma. And I told her that while I believe in positive karma, I don't believe we attract tragedy. We are simply human. Absolutely. And Rinsky is asking both Judy and myself how our homes are coming along. As you know, we both had fires. I quite honestly haven't got an update. I wasn't at the house this week. I'm planning to go tomorrow to go and have a look and see. Part of the way I'm going to use up those hours that there won't be any heat in the house. And Jeannie, I know that you gave us an update on Friday that things are coming along quite well. Yeah, and Rinsky is, Nasha is saying that, quite honestly, that experience that she had, horrible though it might be, ended up being a positive experience for her. Yeah, and Annie is talking about her faith. And, I think it's really important for those of you who have faith to know that it is such a wonderful thing to give you strength at times like this. And for those of you who may not have religious faith, maybe you have faith in other things, all right? And that is really important too. I want to tell you that even in the darkest hours of my life, I was very grateful that I never let go of hope. And, and to me, it's like, I think the greatest gift we can give ourselves is one of hope. Not that that means that we won't be devastated if what we hope for doesn't happen. But, if we don't have hope, then what do you have? And so I hope always for the best. And quite honestly, in situations like this, and Annie, I don't know you very well, but you probably know I will always talk my truth. I will hope for the best for Zephyr, not necessarily the best for you, because for me, whatever happens, I hope it's the best for him. And because I trust that you will adapt and learn to cope with whatever happens, and that, you are in a stronger place, if you like, because of your faith and age and everything else. And so to me, it's about, I think about Beth's co-workers, who just watched one of their friends that, that they work with every day get sick one day and 48 hours later was death from COVID. You look at it and you go, some of them may not have the emotional intelligence to be able to cope with it. And so, who is ready for that? And yet, on the other side, I say, maybe we all need to get ourselves ready that could happen to any of us. And, the devastating thing that has just happened to Annie could happen to any of us. It's just, life is not fair. And Andrew Bernstein said, remember that stress doesn't come from what's going on in your life. It comes from your thoughts about what is going on. Yes, and Annie is reminding us that almost all religions are based on the same principles: treat others with love and kindness, do good to everyone, have compassion even for the worst offender. Yeah, and you are so incredibly lucky to have those solid roots, Annie. I've got to say that to have those roots as solidly as you do is wonderful. And Jeannie's saying all the walls and the roof are up on her house, the front door is on, and we're working on the basement bathroom and basement walls. The plumber and electrician are next. It takes time. Boy, I know it takes time. And Rinsky's saying, I'm so glad to hear that, Jeannie. I can't wait for you to tell us the day that you move back in. Yes. And, Annie is thanking Jeannie for the fact that she has those strong faith roots. And again, it is amazing. I think it is a gift that you give your children if you are somebody that passes on your faith. Because if you have taught them the roots of good faith, then they will have those roots forever. I want to tell you, I quite honestly, I have a lot of sadness about my time with the nuns. But I also have some great memories and great faith because of my time in school with the nuns. And I was in boarding school, so the nuns became my de facto parents for so much of my life. But it's about, I think if you have those kind thoughts, you know that it is an amazing thing to be able to have that strength. And how about this one? Joyce Mayer, listen to this one, said that getting stress out of your life takes more than prayer alone. You must take action to make changes to stop doing whatever it is that is causing you stress. You can learn to calm down in the way you handle things. All right, so you cannot expect prayer to fix all your stress if you keep repeating what is stressful. Does that make sense? All right, so if I keep eating sugar, I'm going to keep having high blood sugar. Duh. So I need to stop this addiction of sugar. And I am not stupid. I know that. It's doing it that is causing me the problem. And I was fine for nearly, a year and a half. And then suddenly, because I was away from my home and then the pandemic, because I couldn't give away the things I was baking fast enough, I ended up eating them and then I got addicted again. It's going to take a while. Annie is saying, my mom taught me all the goodness, feeding homeless people in the park, giving to my classmates who were young mothers, etc. The church has caused me a lot of pain and disappointment, but I just keep the positive parts which help me and leave the rest. That's so funny you should say that, Annie, because that's what I did as well. I am aware. And by the way, I really queried a lot of what I was being taught, even at a very young age. And I know you don't necessarily know me very well yet, but if you know me, you will not be surprised. And I have some fun stories about where I actually, queried what was being taught to me because it contradicted what they taught me last week. And it was amazing how many times they couldn't answer my questions. All right. Exactly. And Rinsky is saying, well, the church is just, run by human beings, which means they aren't perfect either. Absolutely. So there are times when we need to pray for them, right? To remember to practice what is good, not what is bad. That's beautiful that you can have that compassion. I am delighted to hear that. How about this one? Dave Allen, he was said, much of the stress that people feel doesn't come from having too much to do. It comes from not finishing what they started. Or, as I discussed on Friday, because we had that example, how many half-finished projects do you have in your home to remind you that you haven't finished something? The trick is throw them out. Have an official, goodbye ceremony to, literally get a plastic bag and go once a year. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to be able to do? Once a year, go through and go, I'm going to throw out everything that I've started and haven't bothered to finish. And if I haven't bothered to finish it, there's a good reason. I lost interest, and that's okay. But what happens to us is we say, oh, but I spent so much money buying this stuff. And on the other hand, when you think about it, you could have spent that much money getting a membership so you could hit a little white ball around a rather large field and call it sport. It's this like, if you think about it, I used to say to people, I don't know if any of you relate to this, I'd go into a fabric store to go and buy and some more needles or some thread, and I'd end up with, 5 bolts of fabric, and I'd stand in the lineup with my 5 bolts of fabric and go, I came in to buy some thread. What did you guys come in for? And it's amazing how people would answer me the truth. And then I'd say, I've realized that I actually have an insane hobby. I collect material that I will never use. Do any of you relate to that? I collect material that I will never use. Yeah. Just like, oh, yeah, I like the look of that. I'll make something out of that one day. Wrong. And so when I moved, to the very large extent, you have no idea how much I threw away. I gave some away, but, it caused me less stress to throw it away than to give it away, quite honestly. So even though I thought, I should give it away, and part of my reasoning was, some of it had been in a box for 20 years, and it had been in a smoke-laden box and all those sort of things. I went, something, let it go. Lee Iacocca said, in times of great stress or adversity, it is always best to keep busy, to plow your anger and your energy into something positive. Well, hello, that's what Benji taught me. And so I look at it and go, what an amazing gift we have to have Annie in all that she's going through come and teach us about grace. Come and teach us about the world is an ocean, and my job is not to fight the waves. My job is to know that waves are part of the ocean. And my job is to move with them rather than fight against them. And Arinsky saying, well, that is so true. I haven't finished what I lost interest in. I have dyslexia and some issues reading my whole life. I finally learned what type of books I'm interested in, and it helped me so much. All right, so understand that. That's another thing I did, funny enough. I gave away boxes and boxes and boxes of books. Isn't that interesting? Because, there was a local place that collected secondhand books and sold them for charity. And I literally took boxes of them and took them there. I still have lots of boxes of them. And the reason is I thought about, for the rest of my life, do I want to have all those books, in a bookshelf behind me to show everybody how smart I am? Or do I want to let them go because I'd like to have different interests now? And, if you think about it, I did keep, something? I kept a couple. Isn't it funny? I kept a couple of books. One of them was a really great book on dressage, because I used to ride dressage, where you get the horses to dance. I kept that book. Why? Because I have it actually in when I get back to my house, I have my riding hat, my very expensive riding boots, and my hat sits on top of the boots, and the book is with it. So in other words, I made a little shrine almost to the time that I was riding dressage. I didn't want to forget that time, right? It was an important part of my life. And so can you understand that I could throw away all the other books I had, but I kept the best of that one. And one day, when I get that out again, I will show that to you. And so Isn't that what Marie Kondo says as well? If it gives you pleasure, you should keep it. It's like, if it doesn't give you pleasure to keep seeing those books you haven't finished, Rinsky, and you're pretty sure you're not going to go back. And how about this? Christopher Robin said, and if you remember, you are braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And sometimes believing in our ability to be able to cope. Do you understand that for Annie to have this level of grace means that she has incredible inner strength? And she is braver than a lot of people would believe possible. And she is stronger than she may seem to a lot of people. And she is way smarter than maybe some people give her credit for. And why? She just knows how to deal with that level of stress and has the grace to do it. Jeannie, I'm not quite sure I understand what you're saying there. Perhaps you could word that a different way for me, because as it's written, I'm not quite sure about what it is that you're speaking. Are you saying that they're changing the language of religion, or are you saying something else? Let me know. All right, so how about this? Bruce Lee said this. He said, it is not a daily increase, but a daily decrease. Hack away at the inessentials. All right. I want you to think about, simplifying every part of your life that you need to simplify it. And I cannot believe how much I have accumulated in the few months that I've been here in the apartment. And that to me is surprising. But now what I'm doing is going, okay, I can have it, but I need to organize it again, and then also be aware that I am collecting again at an incredible rate. Oh, interesting. Okay, so now I can repeat what Jeannie said. Jeannie said originally, I'm quite concerned that now people are changing language. This is dangerous and not often a good thing. And then went on to say, I'm thinking of the American language, not religion, taking away pronouns to be more inclusive, for example. But that is, I am certain every generation has said that, Jeannie. I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is that's part of moving on. I am pretty certain that the day that in my day, when they added the word groovy into the dictionary, I'm certain that my parents rolled their eyes and did not think that was a good addition. And yet at the time, it was definitely a word that was needed defining because we used it all the time. And so I look at it and go, it is important. And now it's interesting that Annie's saying, and this is why we don't discuss politics or social issues. It doesn't hurt anyone. Why let it bother you? Well, funny enough, I do discuss things like that, Annie, because I think that's how we learn. I think and one of the things I give your mom such incredible credit for is that she is prepared to talk about it as well. And I have really appreciated her input. And so to me, it is, it is an interesting, that's how we learn things. It is by being able to discuss difficult things that we learn things. I don't think that we can understand people if we don't understand their point of view. We don't have to agree with them, but we do need to understand their point of view. Just my view. And then Yash is saying, it doesn't make sense to fight the waves, but to flow with them. It is one important lesson I learned here. Sal, I never knew life consisted of struggles. Yeah, it does, right? Ah, so Annie's saying, I would like to discuss them. Who is she, your mom? Okay, so hang on a second. Because I want to tell you, she's been really good about discussing them with me. I have been so honored that and one of the things I wanted to ask, does anybody want to know more about this QAnon thing? And the reason I'm saying that is because, I've heard that thing so often now that I started to research into it a bit more deeply. And I wondered if anybody else would like to know more about it and whether, I should do a little segment just to give you basically, and if we've got anybody that knows anything about it, please, let me know. And so, that's interesting. Vincey's going, yeah, I'd like to know more about it. Well, to me, it's a bit like I was saying to you, the false flag thing. I thought it was really important that, and I let people know what that means in case they've never heard it before. I had never, to me, it was one of those things where I go, yeah, I know what it is, but I wonder how many people do. And, part of what makes us more compassionate and understanding is when we understand what things mean. Oh, so Jeannie's saying we're diametrically opposed and feel bad about each other. So I stop and I do not engage. Well, hang on a second, Jeannie. That's never stopped you talking to me. Well, and Annie's saying, I think we ought to know more about it. It's because it's dangerous and extremely bizarre. It's a conspiracy theory. Yes, and I want to make sure the same thing. Remember how I started this broadcast about the story about my brother saying that there was an over-the-counter drug that could, fix COVID. And my immediate reaction was go, really, what has happened to my brother? And yet when I did more research, I found out they're actually looking at it. Now, it doesn't mean that they've proven it to be true, but it is being looked at. And so to me, it is like, I think that when how many of you would find it stressful to talk about QAnon, knowing that its views are so strong and weird? And, that's, I think everybody knows that they're into conspiracy theories and everything else. I heard today, just before I go, that, for example, all of President Trump's legal lawyers walked away days before his impeachment trial. Now, I'm pretty certain from what I understand that the reason they did is they refused, to go to court to fight against something they knew not to be true. You see, and the lawyers have to protect their oath of office. If a lawyer is not allowed to intentionally tell a lie, all right? It's not intentionally allowed to tell a lie. And if they're caught doing that in a courtroom, they can be disbarred. So interesting. Maybe we can use, by the way, he's now got another lawyer, I heard, but maybe we can use that as a bit of practice on how not to overreact to things. Maybe we can find a good way. And so to me, I think it's really important that we can understand that, that we need to understand why people believe, and we have to honor the fact that they're entitled to have their own beliefs. And so I am pretty certain that this has been true of the world, and it's also been true of all the world wars, all right? How many world wars are fought because people are trying to force other people to change their views? Yes, and Jeannie is saying that one of the reasons she doesn't talk politics with her daughter anymore is because my love for my child is more important than politics. And so to me, this is about, hey, we can continue to learn. How many of you enjoy the fact that I drop in a bit of learning every now and then, like the false flag, or maybe do a couple of points about what is QAnon and what do you need to know about it? Annie, I'm sorry to laugh, but oh boy, do I relate to that. Listen, Annie's saying that the things she and her mom fight about are not politics, but human decency. My mother is the one who taught me these principles, and now we argue over them. I think that is beautiful. You know something? Because isn't that true? Annie, I've always said to people, be very careful about the people you marry, because it has been my experience in life to notice that the reason people marry people are the same reasons they end up getting divorced. You know, if they were attracted to somebody because they were the life and soul of the party, you know, they will end up getting divorced because he was the life and soul of the party, you know, everywhere, and didn't pay enough attention to that person. Or if they were so kind and generous, and that's why I married him, and then he continued to be kind and generous to everybody else, but didn't, you know, they didn't feel they were getting enough kindness and generosity. It's amazing how those things happen. So yes, Annie, with a great smile, sometimes those things come back to bite us in a strange way. But I love it that you two can still love each other to the extent that you do, and you know, learn to deal with it. And so, Nash is saying the teaching segments are very beneficial to me. I learn a lot. Well, that is great. So here we go. I'm going to give one more quote for you all, and that's from Norman Vincent Peale. And he said, stand up to your obstacles and do something about them. You will find they haven't half the strength you have. All right. So if you stand up to what the big waves are, if you stand up and ride the wave, if you stand up and go, hey, I know that's a big wave coming and I need to do something about it, then again, you will be prepared and not scared. And so to all of you, first, I just want to say a really big thank you to Annie for coming in. I think I, for one, am wiser for having you come in. Thank you. Annie, I have no doubt. Annie's saying it's taken many years, but I adore my mom. I believe you. And, you know, Jeannie's saying, thanks for helping Annie. I don't think I helped Annie. I think Annie helped us. And so I encourage you all to understand that having different points of view, as we have heard today, has nothing to do with a lack of love. Jeannie, I have hoped that the days that you and I stand on totally different sides of the fence, you always knew that I wanted to hear your opinion and wanted to learn from it, you know, in case I'd missed something. And I can hear it and still decide, hey, I still don't agree with you, but that's okay. At least I know more. And I think that is really what it's all about. And yes, sometimes in life, the weird things are going to come back to bite us, all right? That the very things we were taught. The same thing, Annie, that's what happened to me in the nuns. You know, they'd be teaching me things on Monday, and by Friday they were doing something that were contrary, and I'd go, excuse me, what about that thing you taught me on Monday? And they'd be going, what? You know, and then they'd have their ruler out. And I going, but on Monday you said. And I would remember, Annie, exactly what they said. And they'd go, well, that's different. Why? Tell me, you know, and I was really, it wasn't that I was doubting Thomas. That wasn't what I was. I was just going, it's not consistent, guys. You guys are going to get this religion thing consistent. Otherwise, you're going to have me totally messed up. And you can probably imagine. And you know, the funniest thing, I'm pretty certain if you ask the nuns, what do they remember most? It would be the day that they wanted, or the whole lead up to getting confirmed, when I literally, first of all, said I didn't want to do confession to some human, because my confession was to God, not to some human. And, then they spent a month convincing me that they would bring in a lay priest to hear my confession. They'd bring it from another diocese somewhere, they'd bring in, this lay priest, because I was so adamant. That guy, I see him every day. Why would I confess to him? All right. And, and so they heard me. I got to give them credit for that. They did hear me. And then they said, Sally, we will bring in a lay priest and go, what's that? And who will hear your confession. He's never met you before and he'll never meet you again. And he will give you absolution. And then I said, no. Actually, I've thought it through now and it's okay. I'll talk to the priest, the regular one. But I thank you for going to that trouble. And you know what I did is I walked in with a tome. I'm not joking. I had a file about this deep of things I needed to confess. You see, I believed in that process. And so here I was, and everybody else had a piece of paper. Me, it was this deep. And I walked in and the priest, did the whole thing. And then, okay, now you can confess. And his eyes were falling, they were out on stalks and he was falling over himself. And he said, and I read the first page and I stopped. And he said, no, carry on. I said, no. I said, that's a bit for you. And he said, what? And I said, I know your job is to forgive my sins. So I gave you some that you can do because I don't want to mess with your job. And he understood my logic. And I said, the rest I'm going to go and talk to God about. Although I think it's a bit of a waste of time because everything you've already taught me tells me that God already knows about all these things. Therefore, but I'll do it because that's what the confession is all about. So I'll go and do that. And with that, Annie, I took my big tome of notes and I walked into the chapel and I walked straight up to the altar. And I don't mind telling you, there was a small group of nuns who followed me to make sure that I wasn't going to mess up anything. And I sat cross-legged in front of the altar and I literally went, okay. And I out loud, can you imagine me? I'm going, okay, God, now then, remember the apple tree. And I literally went through a lifetime of bad things I had done. I had great faith, probably greater faith than they knew. And Annie's saying, I have a funny confession story too. Everybody thought I'd gotten lost. True story. I went to tell the priest every single thing I had ever done. See, you relate to this. Jeannie saying Annie's first confession lasted a long time. Others waited and waited while the other line of children came in and out quickly. Yep. Annie, you and I understand it to a different way. And Annie's saying, I think the entire church had a big laugh. I did exactly the same thing. Yes. You see, we believed what they taught us. Isn't that funny? And then my attitude was, why can't I do this, in the washroom? Because he's listening. You taught me that. Having said that, I still believe the greatest gift the nuns ever gave me was my faith. And even my faith that doing what we do every week helps somebody maybe somewhere. And so for all of you who come in and help by sharing your stories and help by giving support to people who need them, as you know, we never know who needs it this week. Sometimes it's me. And you guys have been awesome at supporting me. Sometimes it's Judy, sometimes it's Jody. And quite honestly, every day it is all of us. Because we do have life going on around us. And life isn't always fair, and it can be very stressful. This is DearMamaSal saying thank you for being here with me and helping one another. Remember to look after each other, but most of all, please, 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 look after yourself. Because until you consider yourself important enough to do that, you will not be able to cope with the stress. So I send you all my love and big hugs and tell you that your faith, for those of you who have it, is the greatest gift you have. And for those of you who believe in the tooth fairy, that's also just fine. For those of you who believe in your religion, that's great. And for those of you who believe that politics and religion should never be discussed, think again. I believe part of what we need to do is to understand each other and to have faith that the other person is strong enough and smart enough to be able to work it out. And sometimes the greatest lessons come from our greatest conflicts. Benji, I see you there and I love you dearly, honey. Thank you so much for all you have taught me. This is DearMamaSal saying bye-bye for now.